American Handgunner Insider.
Hey folks, Tom McHale here with American Handgunner Magazine. We are here for another episode of American Handgunner Insider. We've got something a little bit different today. Here at SHOT Show again, as you can probably tell, I'm going to say we ran into, by chance, bumped into Michael Cargill. He has quite a story to tell us, and it really, in a broad sense, it's about ATF overreach, and it's about the federal government exceeding their bounds. It's about the executive branch saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and make our own laws and not just administer the laws designated by Congress, the actual lawmaking authority in this country per the Constitution. So, Michael, welcome. I'll tell you what, I'll give our audience a quick tease as to what this is about. Michael actually filed a lawsuit against the ATF ruling on bump stocks. And you can have bump stocks, not have bump stocks. Doesn't matter. What does matter is what happened in this process is that the ATF took an object and created their own laws around it and basically tried to create legislation using that. So they can do it with bump stocks. They can do it with semi-auto. They can do it with pistol grips. They can do it with forehand grip, whatever, right? I want to talk about the process that he's gone through because through lots of perseverance, he has scored an incredible victory against federal government overreach. So I don't want to steal your thunder. We're gonna let you tell the story, Sir. So what happened that caused you to file a lawsuit against the United States of America?
Sure, absolutely. So what happened was there was a shooting in Las Vegas. A madman decided to take allegedly took a bump stock, which is a part, and attach it to a rifle to commit that shooting. And so as a result of that, the government decided they were going to ban bump stocks. And instead of going through Congress, they decided they were actually going to go through the ATF
Right.
and have the ATF, create a rule to actually ban bump stocks and turn millions of Americans into felons overnight.
Right.
And so I sued because I didn't want to give up my bump stocks. So I'm glad I did do this because I sued the federal government, I sued the ATF and the Department of Justice.
That's not scary.
No, it's not scary at all. It's not scary at all. And so I sued them in federal court.
Yeah.
The case was heard in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
And we lost the first case. And so we appealed that case to the Fifth Circuit. It was heard by a 3-judge panel in the Fifth Circuit, and we lost that case. We appealed again to the entire Fifth Circuit. It was heard in en banc in front of the entire Fifth Circuit, the panel there, which is like 12 judges or 13 judges or something. And so, and I attended every single court session, and we won. We won in the Fifth Circuit. So then the government, which is the Department of Justice and ATF, decided to appeal that case to the United States Supreme Court.
Right.
And so then the case was heard in the United States Supreme Court in February of 2024. And on June 14 of 2024, we got the ruling back from the United States Supreme Court.
Right.
And that was I won. June 14th is the Army's birthday. It's actually Flag Day.
I totally dropped the ball when I introduced you.
Why?
Because you're an Army veteran.
Yes, that is correct.
You got to let our folks know that.
That's right. And so that's why that was important to me. It was like the Army's birthday. I served 12 years in the Army. And this ruling came down on that day of all days that we won. Not only did we win, but the ATF, the United States Supreme Court said, hey, the ATF went way too far in, overstepping their authority.
Right.
And also they gave us a clarification of what a definition of a machine gun was.
Right.
They said, hey, a bump stock does not turn a rifle into a machine gun. And because here's why. One action of the trigger, one round goes out, that's a semi-automatic.
Yep.
One action of the trigger, more than one round goes out, then that is a machine gun.
Right.
And so a bump stock, you're actually hitting the trigger every single time for
one action.
That is correct. So it clearly does not turn a rifle into a machine gun.
And here, just to reemphasize this, the reason why this is so important, whether you have a bump stock or care about bump stocks or not, your belt loop is a bump stock. My belt loop, right?
That's right.
If you're really, with a little bit of practice, you can make your shoulder a bump stock.
Hey, Jared, his finger is a bump stock.
It is nothing mechanical. It is all about allowing recoil to work against a trigger finger you're holding in the same place as the shot before.
That's correct.
So sorry, I had to, I'm passionate about that because a bump stock, there's no such concept as turning a gun into a machine gun.
Right.
It is a method of firing a gun.
And that's why we had to put the ATF back in their little box and put them in check, because if we allowed them to do this, what happened was they took the bump stock ban,
Mm-hmm.
that wording, and they came after the brace using the same
Right.
format. They just removed the word bump stock. They came after the triggers, used the same format. They just removed,
Yeah.
the words there and insert another word.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that we filed this lawsuit and we won, because if we hadn't, we'd been in big trouble.
Right.
And if we lost, we'd been even more trouble.
Right.
So it's a good thing we did do this and we won. And so it was a great victory for the United States.
That's I tell you, it's patriots like you that are willing to kind of, and it is a big risk, because look at, I mean, and not to get it all into politics and everything, but look at the whole January 6th thing.
Correct.
You've got, whatever your feelings on that, you've got people that were protesting. There's probably some rioting going on in some parts of that whole thing. I won't get into all that, but the basic idea is we cannot have political persecution
And that's
for
exactly what
people wanting to exercise their rights or standing up for free speech or challenging a government decision. I mean, they work for us, and they denied, Joe Biden denied that on the campaign trail, of course. And I don't work for you, Joe. Well, guess what? You do.
Right.
We voluntarily cede our power to the federal government, the power that we hold as citizens. So
And
good for you.
Yeah, and I'm, it's very important that we continue on, and
Yeah.
and I continued on and made sure that that case went back down to the lower court in Austin, Texas, and I wanted that lower court judge to rule on this case, because I wanted him to vacate the rule,
Right.
get rid of it, and then the most important thing is return everyone's bump stocks that were confiscated.
Right.
So what happened was the ATF walked into my gun store on several occasions to return my bump stocks back to me.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing I refused to accept them, because if I hadn't, then I would have lost standing in the case. If I lost standing in the
Little
case, then-
4D chess going on here,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah, there would have been nothing to force the government to,
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
to make any of this happen. So what happened was we went back to that lower court. They ruled and then said, hey, everyone's bump stocks got to be returned back to them in the United States.
Yeah.
And I was very grateful of that.
good. So just to make sure, people that own them or that have had them confiscated, just to be real clear, what do they need to do? What do they need
It's
to know?
important that people understand the judge has ruled that now that if your bump stocks were confiscated by the government, by the ATF,
Mhm.
they have to return the bump stocks back to you.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that. Your bump stocks need to be returned back to you.
Yep.
It is court ordered.
Right.
Court ordered.
Fantastic. That is great work. We owe you a big debt.
Yeah. And then the last thing we're working on is the mom and pops.
Okay.
Mom and pop gun stores. I wanted to, kind of do something with mom and pop gun stores, because I've been reached out by several different FFLs from around the country, from California, from, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. They're having problems where the Biden administration enforced a zero tolerance policy,
Mhm.
Meaning that if you have an FFL and your customer walked into the gun store and filled out the 4473, and on that box it says county, they put, country,
Right.
then your FFL would have been revoked.
If you didn't catch that error,
If
right?
you didn't catch that mistake.
So this, correct me if I'm wrong. I have this vague memory that there was somewhere over 2,000. Is that right?
There-
2,000 licenses revoked under this no tolerance.
And here's the problem with
Right.
that. Once those licenses are revoked, guess where those records go?
Yep.
Those records go to the ATF, and and in fact, though, they created a registry.
Yep. Instant gun registries for all those.
Instant.
Yep. Yeah.
And that was the plan.
Kind of nefarious sounding. If you were a conspiracy theorist, you'd say, hey, maybe that's on purpose.
That was the plan. So
Yeah.
we filed this lawsuit to protect all the mom and pop gun stores. And what happened was we were requesting a summary judgment by the judge. And so the Biden administration saw this and they read the writing on the wall, because the judge was signaling they were going to agree with me and
Yeah.
grant me my summary judgment. So they decided to revert back to the previous rule
Right.
and then, decided to back down. And so we had to close the case. So we won.
Do you feel like congratulations on that one as well. Do you feel like the ATF backed off, like really actually backed off the crackdown on administrative
Yes,
clerical
because
errors and things?
I don't think, yes, they did. They backed
Okay.
down because the Biden administration did not want to take another loss prior to him leaving office.
Right. Good. And I think, and this is entirely my opinion, just based on loose observation, it seems like yet another situation where the local folks, out in the field are trying to do the right thing here. Because, I mean, we're at Chacho, there's ATF people all over the place. And, they're here, they're giving advice. So like, how do we work better together? All this good stuff happening. It seems like it's an upper level management situation where things go awry and sideways. Is that fair, do you think? It's a question for you. I'm not pushing that.
Yeah, things are going to happen. You're going to make mistakes in this process. So you become a federal firearms license dealer.
Mhm.
It's a lot to know. It's a lot to remember. It's a lot to understand. And so no one's going to get it right. You're
Yeah.
going to make mistakes in the process.
Right.
So what they should do is come in and guide you to help you, correct some of those mistakes and lead you, in the right direction and be like a little coach.
Yeah.
Instead of being that, that group of people that are just saying, you know what, you made a mistake. We're going to revoke your license. You're done. And you can never get an FFL ever again.
Let's focus on the bad guys.
Right. What about the drug cartels?
Process, right. Yeah, exactly. So
Exactly.
okay. Well, fantastic. I really appreciate you joining us today and kind
Yes.
of enlightening us and our listeners and viewers on your experience.
Absolutely.
You
And-
can win,
You can. With determination, anything is possible. And definitely reach out to me at Michael D. Cargill on different social media platforms. That's
Okay.
Michael D. Cargill. Or go to my website, which is michaelcargill.com.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you for having me.
All right, folks, if you want more like this, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, FMG Pubs, and we will see you next time on Insider.